going, everybody? Welcome to General Hospital MV, my GA chapter show. Let's get into it. Our journey begins in Austria, where Felicia Scorpio and Anna Devane are going undercover as a grieving widow and an attorney to find answers on whether or not Luke's death was on purpose or an accident. Felicia's acting skills were a little bit rusty since her PI days, which was a little bit irritating for Anna, but eventually she convinced the worker at the government facility to let them look at some hard copies of the files from the accident. There was something mysterious in the file. Apparently the cable car was delayed and there was no explanation as to why, which makes Felicia and Anna think that it may have been delayed to make sure that Luke was on it in the first place. Meanwhile, the worker who had left them there had told another worker about the ladies looking at the file, and unfortunately that guy worked for Victor Cassadine. He calls Victor, who then tells him to take care of them. The dude tries, but he is dealing with Anna Devane and Felicia Scorpio, so he's unsuccessful. They call the WSB in and demand answers from the man, but apparently he was willing to die for the cause and he poisoned himself. Anna then realizes that this is much bigger than just a vendetta against Luke Spencer. It's a good thing that there are people back in Port Charles trying to find out some answers for themselves. Laura meets up with Robert, Dante, and Sam at Charlie's to discuss what Victor could be up to and how it could tie to the Ice Princess, and her nosy deputy mayor, Eileen, who is under Victor's thumb, is curious why she's there because it wasn't on the schedule. So she lurks outside for a bit while the gang discusses theories on Victor and also their game plan on tricking Victor into thinking that he has Drew under his control. Eileen then comes in and insists that she needs to know what the meeting was about because she doesn't want to get in trouble with her other superiors, and Laura mistakenly lets her in on a bit of what the meeting was about. Not the whole thing, but she does say that she has reasons to believe that her ex-husband Luke was murdered and that she has a suspect in mind. Eileen then takes that back to Victor, and Victor thinks it's obvious that Laura thinks that he is the suspect. Now on top of that, back in Austria, Felicia and Anna get their hand on the burner phone that the dead man had, and they call the number and it reaches the deputy mayor, and that's when Victor realizes that his plan to kill Anna and Felicia backfired, and he puts plan B into motion, which apparently involves someone that they won't see coming. I want to know who that is. I hope it's someone we know and love, but who do you guys think it is? Let me know in the comments below. Anyway, Victor is still flying high from finding that planted tarot card, and he decides to call Drew, and Drew acts reluctant that Victor wants to meet with him, but of course we all know that's exactly what Drew wanted. Drew meets up with him on the footbridge and lets Victor think that he has control of him while Dante and Sam listen in from a van just down the road. Victor tries to test on whether or not Drew is actually under his control by asking him to throw his muscle Johan over that bridge, and when he almost does, Victor thinks that's enough to justify that he is in fact under his control. He then asks Drew for information on his time as a SEAL for something called Operation Demeter, and before Drew could say anything, which is probably a good thing but also kind of unfortunate, Carly shows up and had filmed the whole thing thinking she was rescuing Drew and showing proof that Victor was a dangerous man. Honestly, if they weren't looking for other information, that would have been a badass move from Carly that would have proved that Victor was up to something no good. Either way, it's hard to tell what Drew would have done when he asked for the information, so it was probably a good thing that Carly interrupted. At least they have something to go on with Operation Demeter, but obviously Victor can't find any information on the thing. He was relying on Drew to give him that information, and if Victor can't find it, it's going to be difficult for Dante, Sam, and Laura to find it as well, I'm sure. Sam thinks it's good to maybe bring Spinelli in on it, and you know, if this was like 2009, I would agree, like Spinelli was the assassin of the internet back in the day, but they barely utilize him now, and even now he has trouble finding things the way that he used to be able to. Dante also doesn't want to use Spinelli because it bruises his ego a little bit that he can't figure out something that Spinelli can. Come on, man, grow up. As for Drew and Carly, he asks her what the hell was she thinking because she could have gotten herself killed. For all she knew, he was actually under Victor's control and he could have killed her. But of course, Carly wasn't thinking about that. Honestly, they have this like flirtatious vibe right now, and I don't hate it as much as I initially thought that I might. I mean, they might as well pin them together. Clearly the writers are showing that they want to go full steam ahead with Dante and Sam, and obviously they're kind of going half steam with Sunny and Nina, so they might as well put Carly and Drew together because Carly needs a love interest at this point. So does Drew. Speaking of Sunny and Nina, we might as well talk about them. For whatever reason, Sunny is going really up to bat for Nina so that she can try and have some visitation with her grandson. He even goes as far as visiting visiting Michael and Willow and trying to convince them to give her that instead of taking things to court. But obviously that doesn't sit well with them, and he gets absolutely nowhere, and he's unsuccessful, and he goes back to his home to get drunk again. Nina finds Sunny drunk at home, and she's starting to realize that perhaps it's not all sunshine and rainbows with Sunny because, shockingly, he isn't Mike. She may have known about Sunny's reputation, but she didn't know about all the baggage that he had from his childhood, and he brings up Deke, his abusive stepfather, and the fact that he was a drunk and would hit women, and he was crying about it, and Nina is just sitting there like, like, oh man, she did not sign up for that one. Do you guys think that Nina will actually hang in there? Let me know in the comments below. Now obviously Sunny told Nina that he was unsuccessful, so she needs a plan B, so she meets up with Harmony and says that she needs to discuss someone that they have in common, and Harmony couldn't really figure out who she meant for some reason. I wonder why. Nina was like, our mutual grandson, obviously. Who did you even think I met, Harmony? Such a mystery to the audience. We've only been discussing it for years now. Side note, yes, Harmony is still being played by a temporary actress. Also, Phyllis happens to be there, and she seems to be well acquainted with Harmony, aka Lorraine Miller, which is her original name. Anyway, I got a little bit distracted. Nina wants to meet up with Harmony because she thinks that they should be a united front so that they can see their grandchild whenever they want to. Hopefully, Harmony doesn't agree to Nina's plan because Willow and Michael are discussing letting her babysit Wiley while they go to Paris, although something tells me that their plans to go to Paris are going to be interrupted, and I don't mean by Willow's passport. But we're gonna get into that a little bit later on when we talk about the teen scene. What's the connection? Just you guys wait. We're gonna save it for last though, okay? Let's talk about a mobster who has made her way back to town. Brad's aunt, Selena Wu, is back, and she's got her eyes set on Curtis's nightclub so that she could use it twice a month for business meetings with vetoed businessmen. Completely legitimate. Obviously, we know how Curtis feels about mobsters getting into his business, and he turns her down, but she makes her case. She says that this is a legitimate venture. Like she said, this is business people that are vetoed going in for poker games twice a month, and that she won't even be there when they go there, and that she's gonna have Brad run that situation for her. Something tells me that Brad is not yet aware of that. Curtis still says no dice, and she tells him a story about how her grandfather used to tell her a story about a money tree, and later on she actually gives him a money tree as a sign of good faith or a nice gesture or whatever you want to call it. I mean, Curtis knows that this could be lucrative, and she's making it seem like it is completely legitimate, but Curtis, be careful, you don't want to mess with Selena. We got some cute, adorable scenes with Brooke and Chase this week that reminded us of two things. One, that Brooke is clearly never going to sing again, and two, Chase himself is a pretty good singer. Chase brought over her songbook that she left at their last plays, and she was very protective of it because it had songs that she had written before Nell had sliced her throat, and she was sad that she'd never get to sing them again, and that's when Chase got to sing them. And I'm starting to think that they might have Brooke continue to be in the music industry in some way, perhaps as a songwriter. Maybe they'll revive L&B Records. That would be pretty dope. For those of you that might not know, L&B Records was ran by her mom Lois and Brenda Barrett for their music company in Port Charles that had people like Miguel, who was played by Ricky Martin, signed by them. And I think, who else? Juan Santiago, I think, was signed on that too. Newbies, that's Sabrina's cousin. Let's talk about Monica Quartermain. This week, Monica Quartermain has a new face, and don't you dare make that joke. Bad. So she's being temporarily played by someone else, just like half the cast at this point. I wonder what's going on. I mean, we all know what's going on, but let's talk about the show. Monica thinks it's best that she declares that Jason is legally dead, which of course Jason's loved ones are having a hard time with, but she thinks that specifically his children need that kind of closure. Obviously, Finn and Elizabeth had mentioned that Jake has been going through some behavior issues, and speaking of Jake, he tried to sneak out of his meeting with the therapist, and Finn actually finds him and has a discussion with him on what's been going on, and he tells him that he has some kind of secret. Elizabeth finds Finn and Jake, and she wants to know what's going on with Jake too, and he says that he was at the library because he was using the computer to talk to Jeff and Caroline Weber. and he kept that a secret because he knew his mom would be mad about it, which, I mean, she pretty much was. She tried to hide it, but she wasn't hiding it very well at all. I mean, you can't really blame her. I mean, Jeff and Caroline dropped Elizabeth off on Audrey's doorstep when she was a teenager and haven't looked back ever since, at least until recently. Jeff tried to reach out to Elizabeth after Franco died, and she didn't respond, and then he tried to reach out to Terry to reach out to Liz, and Liz got Terry to shut him down, and now he is trying to talk to Jake. So that's why Elizabeth is more pissed, because he's going through him to try to get to her, at least from her point of view. Jake does insist though that he's only been talking to them about art and school and like his normal life and nothing about her. All I know is that us fans deserve to see Jeff Weber and Elizabeth have this conversation, because we have been begging for this for years and years now. If they don't bring him back after all of this, I am going to be pissed. Also for Elizabeth though, she's kind of upset because this means that Jake couldn't have had anything to do with all the things that have been going wrong in her life as well. I do not get why Heather Weber isn't even a thought in her mind. It doesn't make any sense that no one has brought her up at all. Like, I know that people think it's a DID thing, but at the very least, Heather should be brought up, no? Like, do you guys not think this at all, that she should at least be suspecting Heather Weber at this point? Who else is that crazy? Alright, now before we discuss the teen scene, let's quickly talk about the fact that Sean is actually still in town. I thought he was gone already, but no, he is in town, and he and Alexis discussed the relationship that we didn't get with his comeback, and also that Harmony has been hanging around shady characters. But obviously Alexis is like, I know, goodbye. Y'all, I'm so mad that Sean isn't sticking around. It was the actor's choice, but like, so disappointing, man. I'm sure this means he probably got a really good primetime gig though, because that's what he does. I was actually surprised that he came back to GH at all. Alright, now let's talk about the teen scene. Esme has been working overtime to manipulate everyone and everything. Carly tries to confront her at the Metro Court about what she did to Jocelyn and Cam, and Esme of course insists that she didn't do it, and she gets into Carly's face and Carly grabs her hand, and Esme just overkills in how much it hurt her, and Nicholas walked in and seen that and jumped to her defense, and of course Nicholas was like, Carly, back off, and Carly's like, I barely touched her. But the other day, Ryan had grabbed her in the same position, and she had a nasty bruise that she used to manipulate Nicholas even more into feeling sorry for her. You know, last week I was thinking that Esme would have to drug Nicholas to get him into bed with her, but at this rate, Nicholas is falling for her hook, line, and sinker, and I wouldn't doubt that he would just jump into bed with her. Because Nicholas, quite frankly, is a dumbass, and there's no disputing that. Has been for quite some time now. Meanwhile, Trina confides in her mom about how Esme accused her of being the one that filmed Joss and Cameron's viral sex tape, and Portia is pissed. She's like, why are you hanging with these toxic people? Like, why are you even friends with Spencer when he is dating that Viper? Trina does make excuses for Spencer, and Portia's like, nuh-uh, you need to cut him out of your life unless she is out of the picture. And Trina actually goes over to Spring Ridge and gives Spencer that ultimatum, either you dump your girlfriend or we can't be friends anymore. And of course, Spencer can't dump Esme because he's all she has. But he's like begging Trina not to cut him out of her life, and of course Esme is listening in on everything and getting blood boiling angry at Trina, and she decides, when Trina isn't looking, to plant the phone into her bag. And I'm like, first of all, how is a bag even in this facility? Like, it's a jail. Even a low security jail wouldn't let her have that bag in there, but whatever. Esme also called the PCPD to give them a pro tip about the incident, and that causes some problems with reporters later that we'll get into in a second here, but we gotta talk about how Esme came out and Trina left, and Esme and Spencer have this argument because Spencer is convinced that Esme did this, and she's like, you're supposed to believe me, and he's like, literally everyone else is accusing you though. Like, it's so ridiculous. But of course she manipulates him too, because that's what Esme does. She basically storms off saying that they're done, and you know that Spencer's gonna feel terrible about this. I'm a little bit sad because these were Sydney Michaela's final scenes as Trina. Next week we're gonna have an all-new Trina, and I'm stoked to see how she plays the role, but you know, Sydney has a close place in my heart. She made me fall in love with the character of Trina, and I'm so glad that we had such a talented actress play the role. Anyway, a reporter gets a hold of the information about the sex tape and confronts Jordan at the hospital. Jordan wasn't privy to any of this yet, so she's thrown off guard. And on top of that, Michael is there, and he tells him about the sex tape, and Michael is shocked, and of course the reporter says some scuzzy things that make Michael punch him out in front of the police commissioner, and of course Jordan has no choice but to arrest Michael. And on top of that, when Willow goes to call Carly, she collapses, and I'm like, what? But also equally, please don't be pregnant. Please don't be pregnant. Please don't be. I cannot sit through another pregnancy story, you guys. I can't do it. But anyway, that's all she wrote. I hope you guys enjoyed GH this week. Stay tuned this Wednesday for some kind of live stream. We're gonna react to some really old GH stuff and hope it doesn't, you know, get cut off again. Thanks so much everyone for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like this video, give it a big old thumbs up, subscribe if you want to, and I will catch you guys next time. Peace out.